Try to remember the last time you laughed without checking yourself first. Not a polite laugh, not the kind you measure before you let it out. A real one, loose and unguarded, the kind that surprises you on the way up. If you cannot remember, that is exactly why this reading exists, because something is about to crack that open again. I see sunlight pouring through a window at an angle that has no business looking that good on an ordinary Tuesday. It hits a kitchen counter, a stack of unopened mail, a coffee cup left out from the morning. Nothing in this scene was staged for beauty. And yet, it glows anyway, the way ordinary things glow when the person standing in them has finally stopped bracing for the next disappointment. That stopping is the real story here, not the sunlight. The exhale. You have been bracing for a long time, Virgo. I want to name that plainly before we go any further, because I think it has become so familiar to you that you barely register it as a posture anymore. The slight tension behind the ribs, the habit of waiting for the good thing to reveal its hidden cost, the reflex of double-checking joy before fully stepping into it. That bracing made sense once. It protected you through seasons that genuinely required protection, but the season ahead does not require it, and your body is going to need time to believe that before your mind fully catches up. Let me show you what is forming. A garden, but not the tidy kind. Overgrown in places, a little wild at the edges, roses tangled into something that grew without asking permission. This is not a garden someone designed from a blueprint. It is one that grew because the soil underneath it finally got what it needed. Rest, light, time without interruption. You have been tending soil for a long time without seeing much above the surface to show for it. The waiting has felt disproportionate to what you were getting back. That imbalance is correcting itself now. I want to talk for a moment about what happiness has meant for you historically, because I think it has often arrived attached to conditions. Happiness that depended on someone else's mood holding steady. Happiness that required everything else in your life to be simultaneously under control before you allowed yourself to feel it fully. Happiness measured against a constant background hum of vigilance, checking the perimeter even while smiling, half of your attention always reserved for managing whatever might go wrong next. That kind of happiness is exhausting to sustain because it is never actually free. It always comes with strings attached, conditions quietly negotiated in the background of your own mind. What is approaching now is different in a way that matters. It does not require the rest of your life to be perfectly arranged first. It does not depend on every relationship being resolved, every project being finished, every uncertainty being eliminated before you are allowed to feel good. It arrives regardless of some of those loose threads still being loose. That is the part that will feel strange at first. Happiness that does not wait for permission from your own internal checklist. I want to describe something specific because vague happiness is not useful to you. You deserve texture, not just reassurance. I see you in a room full of people and not performing for a single one of them. This detail matters more than it might seem at first, because so much of your life has involved a quiet calibration, adjusting your volume, your opinions, your needs to fit the comfort level of whoever is around you. Shrinking just slightly, consistently, without even fully noticing you were doing it. In this image, none of that shrinking is happening. You are simply there, saying what you think, laughing at what is actually funny instead of what is socially expected, taking up exactly the amount of space your presence naturally requires, no more managed, no more edited. That ease is rare for you, and it is coming there is a second image, and it surprised me when it surfaced: a door left open on purpose, not forgotten, not carelessly ajar, deliberately propped, the way people leave doors open when they actually want to be found, when they have stopped guarding the threshold the way they used to. You have kept a lot of doors closed for good reasons. Some of those reasons were about self-protection that genuinely served you. But somewhere in that protective habit, a few doors got shut that did not need to be. Doors to spontaneity, to trust, to letting good things arrive without first interrogating their motives. I see those doors starting to open again, not recklessly, just honestly, because the threat that made closing them necessary has largely passed. There is something underneath all of this that I want to name directly, because I think it explains why the shift is happening now rather than at some other point. You did something difficult over recent seasons that you have not given yourself enough credit for. You kept showing up for your own growth even when nothing around you was reflecting that growth back at you. You kept choosing honesty in small daily moments, with yourself first and then with others, even when dishonesty would have been easier and would have cost you less in the short term. That kind of consistency is rare. Most people abandon it the moment it stops producing visible rewards. You did not abandon it. And what is arriving now is not a reward handed down arbitrarily from outside. It is closer to a harvest, the natural result of seeds that were planted with intention, watered with discipline, and given enough time underground to actually take root before anything was expected to show above the surface. You earned the version of happiness that is coming, not in the sense of deserving it morally, though you do deserve it, in the more practical sense that you built the conditions for it yourself, one unglamorous choice at a time. Let me talk about what is actually generating this happiness, because I do not want to leave it abstract. Several things are converging at once, and that convergence is rare enough to be worth naming specifically. Something in your work or your creative output is about to land in a way that finally matches the effort you put into it. Not flashy recognition, something quieter and more satisfying. The sense of finally being met at the level you have been operating at for a while without anyone noticing. Something in your body is settling to, less tension carried in the shoulders, sleep that actually restores instead of just interrupting the day. A physical lightness that you will notice before you can fully explain it. And something in your relationships is shifting toward reciprocity. People who actually show up the way you have always shown up for others. The exhausting imbalance you have tolerated for too long finally correcting itself, not through confrontation, but through new people and renewed people simply meeting you properly. These threads are not separate. They are arriving together, reinforcing each other. I think it is worth naming one more thread specifically because it tends to go unnoticed until it has already changed something significant. Your relationship with rest is shifting. For a long time, rest has probably felt like something you had to justify or earn first, a reward only available after every obligation was cleared and every task completed. That arrangement rarely worked in your favor because the list never actually finishes. There is always one more thing waiting to be addressed before you allow yourself to stop. What is forming now looks different. Rest that is taken simply because your body asked for it, without the accompanying guilt, without the mental tally of everything still undone running quietly in the background while you try to relax. That permission, once it settles in fully, changes more than your energy levels. It changes the baseline tone of your entire day. Less bracing in the mornings, Less internal negotiation before allowing yourself an evening with nothing productive happening in it. Small but foundational. I want to ask you something honestly. When was the last time you let yourself want big things without immediately listing the reasons it probably will not happen? Sit with that for a second before answering even in your own head. If the answer is it has been a while, that is not a failure on your part. It is simply information about how long you have been managing your own hope down to a survivable size. Tell me in the comments if that resonates. I want to know how long you have been carrying that particular kind of caution. There is an image now of water completely still, holding a reflection with perfect clarity. Stillness like that does not happen by accident. It happens when whatever was churning underneath finally settles, when the disturbances that kept the surface broken and distorted finally run their course. What you are about to see reflected back at you in this stillness is yourself, clearly, without distortion, without the noise of other people's expectations rippling the surface and warping what you actually look like underneath all of that interference. You are going to like what you see, not because anything about you changed fundamentally, because the water finally got quiet enough to show you what was always there. I want to mention something practical here, because spiritual readings sometimes skip over the ordinary texture of what change actually looks like day to day. This happiness is not going to announce itself with fireworks. It is going to show up in small, almost forgettable moments at first. A conversation that goes easier than expected. A morning where you wake up before the alarm and do not immediately reach for your phone to check what went wrong overnight. A meal you actually taste instead of eating on autopilot while your mind runs through tomorrow's obligations. You might almost miss it if you are not paying attention, because it does not arrive dressed as a major event. I am telling you this in advance so that when those small moments start accumulating, you recognize them for what they are instead of dismissing them as ordinary luck that does not count toward anything larger. They count. They are the actual substance of what this entire reading has been describing. I want to be honest about something, because happiness readings can sometimes drift into vague promises that feel good in the moment and dissolve the second the video ends. This is not that. What I am seeing has weight to it. It is not a single euphoric peak followed by a crash back into the familiar grind. It is closer to a baseline shift, the kind that happens when enough small corrections accumulate at once, and the result is a sustained different normal rather than a temporary high. That distinction matters because you have had moments of happiness before that did not last, and some part of you may be braced for this to be one of those moments too. It is not. I want to address something that tends to surface specifically for Virgo when good things start arriving consistently, because I think naming it directly will save you some unnecessary suffering. There is a particular discomfort that comes from happiness that has no clear cause you can point to and credit entirely. You are someone who likes explanations, who feels steadier when you can trace a result back to a specific action, a specific decision, a clear line of cause and effect that makes the outcome feel earned and therefore trustworthy. But not all of this is going to arrive with a tidy explanation attached. Some of it is simply the natural unfolding of timing finally aligning with the work you already did. Some of it is the universe operating on a schedule that has nothing to do with your ability to track or predict it. And that lack of a perfectly traceable cause might create a flicker of suspicion in you, a quiet voice asking whether something this good, arriving without a fully explainable reason, can really be trusted to last. I want to address that voice directly. You do not need a complete explanation for something to be real. You do not need to understand every mechanism behind your own happiness in order to be allowed to enjoy it fully. Some seasons of life simply turn the way weather turns without requiring your permission or your full comprehension first. Let this be one of those seasons. There is also something I want to say about the people around you during this shift, because happiness rarely unfolds in complete isolation. As your own internal state lightens, you may notice some relationships responding with genuine warmth. People who are happy to see you happy, who do not need you contained or struggling in order to feel comfortable around you. And you may also notice one or two relationships responding with something else, a subtle coolness, a comment that lands slightly off, almost teasing, but with an edge underneath it. This sometimes happens when a person's happiness shifts the unspoken balance of a relationship that depended, even unconsciously, on you staying smaller or more troubled than you actually are. I am not telling you this to create worry. I am telling you so that if it happens, you recognize it immediately for what it is, and you do not let it talk you out of the happiness that is rightfully yours. Their discomfort with your joy is not evidence against the joy. It is simply evidence of where the relationship's foundation was actually built. Let me describe one more image before we close, because it is the one that stayed with me longest while I was sitting with this reading. A field at the very edge of evening, that particular hour when the light goes gold and everything looks slightly more important than it normally does. Someone standing in the middle of it, arms loose at their sides, head tilted slightly back, not posing, not performing peace for anyone watching, just genuinely, completely at ease in their own skin, in their own life, in the specific moment they are standing in. That is you, Virgo, soon. Not because of one single dramatic event that rearranges everything overnight, because of the steady accumulation of smaller corrections, each one small enough to seem unremarkable on its own, adding up to something that finally feels like relief. I want to say one more thing before we end here. You are allowed to receive this without finding the catch. I know that instinct lives close to the surface in you. The immediate scan for what is being left out, what is too good to be true, what the cost will eventually turn out to be. That instinct has earned its place through real experience. But not every good thing has a hidden price attached. Some things are simply, finally, what they appear to be. This is one of them. I want to leave you with one more thought before we close, because I think it matters more than anything else in this reading. You do not have to do anything differently to receive what is coming. There is no checklist hiding at the end of this video. No 5 habits you need to adopt overnight. No urgent action required before midnight to secure your place in line for this happiness. That kind of pressure is exactly the opposite of what is actually arriving for you. What is arriving is permission to simply continue being who you already are, minus the bracing, minus the constant scanning for the catch, minus the quiet, exhausting work of managing your own joy down to a size that feels safe to carry. You already did the harder part. The slow, unglamorous, often invisible work of becoming someone capable of holding real happiness without immediately sabotaging it or shrinking it or explaining it away. What remains is simply allowing it in. That sounds easy when I say it out loud. I know from everything in your energy that I have been reading throughout this entire session that it will not always feel easy in practice. Old habits do not dissolve the instant you become aware of them. You will likely catch yourself bracing even in moments that clearly do not call for it anymore, out of pure muscle memory rather than any real present danger. When that happens, be gentle with yourself about it. Notice the bracing, name it quietly if it helps, and then, as best you can, let your shoulders drop anyway. Let the moment be good, even while some old part of you insists on double-checking it first. That practice, repeated enough times, is what eventually turns a temporary lightness into your new and lasting normal. Tell me below if you can already feel the edges of this shifting in your own life. Even something small counts. I want to hear it. That's the reading for today. Go be happy without checking first.